Hi everyone, my name is Zach REDRUP, this is the It's Not a Phase podcast, and on this episode I am joined by James Joseph, who's the frontman for James and the Cold Gun. We discuss their forthcoming debut album, stepping down from holding absence to focus on this project, finding his love for long distance running, supporting the likes of rock giants Guns N' Roses and Pearl Jam, and loads more. Now, if you enjoyed this or any other episode of the podcast and you want to show your support, there's a few ways that you can do that. Number one, leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. It takes just a few seconds and it really does help. Number two, share this on your social media, whether that be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever. Or number three, if you want to go the extra mile, you can pay a little bit each month to join the Patreon, and in return you'll get access to episodes early along with some other perks, or you can pick up some merch from the store. All the links to that and the podcast socials where you can follow us can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. And now with all that out of the way, let's jump right into this week's episode of It's Not a Phase. What's up everybody? Thank you for joining me on this episode of It's Not a Phase, where I'm joined by James Joseph of James and the Cold Gun. How you doing, man?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on, man. Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, happy to have you on, man. Album release is coming up soon, so let's talk about that. The self-titled debut album, July 21st is coming out. How are you feeling about finally getting this out into the world? Because I imagine you've been sitting on this for a little bit now.
Yeah, it's nearly been a whole calendar year, which is a bit mental.
Yeah.
Time's like flying, but at the same time, yeah, we're dead excited to get it out. I think we finished it. Yeah, we finished it in July, August last year. And I'm sure you've had other bands and artists say this, but because of the vinyl delays and stuff with Brexit and COVID and everything else, it's been about a year to get the actual physical product made and out into the world. So yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, is that kind of what's made like the main cause of how long it's been since finishing it and putting it out? Mainly the vinyl delays.
Yeah, mainly. I mean, so generally speaking, I think most bands on labels just have to wait until the vinyl's ready, because I suppose vinyl's like the main source of income for a band nowadays, more so than streaming and stuff. So if you weren't on a label, you could go ahead and just put it out digitally like the second you finish it. But we had to wait until the vinyl was ready to go alongside. But yeah, it's all ready now, thank God. No more no more roadblocks. So we're just going to get it out, and yeah, probably let out a big sigh, to be honest. I hate sitting on things. I'm really impatient.
Yeah, that must be like kind of the hardest part for you, because you know this album for, like you say, a year now at least. Mm-hmm. So to you this isn't brand new, whereas for everyone else it's going to be fresh on the ear. So it's kind of like
totally
like, I guess it's going to be even harder than when you got to hold back tour news and stuff like that, because that only comes out like maybe weeks, a few months later, whereas this, like you say, a full calendar year. Like it's got to be so patient to be able to just hold on to all that.
Yeah, you really do. And I think it's frustrating because for me anyway, when I make music, I'm my own worst like critic, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And I mean, I think a lot of creatives are, but like I know everything. I've had a year to like pick it apart, and I know everything that I'd change. I want one song to be slower, or like I would have sung a different line. But now it's not mine anymore. It's for everybody else, and I'm actually kind of excited to see what people make of it. It's one of those things where I don't really have any expectations for it. I'm happy with it, and that was the initial kind of goal for this project, is just to make music that I was into. But there is a little part of me that's sort of excited to just see what people think. Yeah,
definitely. Well, with you guys being such a kind of a relatively new band, I just want to take a few steps back from where the band began. So I believe it was around like early to mid 2019, was it, when with your housemate James Biss? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, it was the tail end. It started as a side project. So before this band, I was playing bass in a band called Holding Absence. And I'd started this band as a little side project because I'd moved in with James Biss, who's the other James in the band. And we just started kind of jamming in the garage and stuff. It was really like reminiscent of when we were like 15 years old. We were like, he'd jump on the drums, I'd jump on guitar, and we'd play through like really bad covers of Foo Fighters and Nirvana and everything else. And we were having a proper good time. We were like, we should do a band together, because this is like, we're having too much fun for this to just be a once in a blue moon sort of thing. I'm going to try and condense this story because it's a bit of a long one, but so it remained as a side project. We didn't really release much music. I think we put out like 1 or 2 songs that we recorded in my bedroom, proper rough recordings. Then in early 2020, I went away with Hold an Absence to record the second album. And during that time, the idea was that I was going to go and record the second album with Hold an Absence and then play the first load of Cold Gun shows that we had in the calendar. Up until this point, we hadn't played any shows. When I was away recording with Hold an Absence, we were in this proper remote farm, a place called Middle Farm in Devon. And during the recording process, COVID happened. So I remember being up late one night. There's this sort of like bunk room in the studio. So you're all in at these bunk beds, and I'm scrolling my phone one evening before falling asleep, and I'm like, oh boys, there's something happening in China. Like there's, it was. I think I remember it was like a weird video of like the police like netting a man and spraying him down. So it was very like dystopian. And I sent it in the group chat. I was like, something weird's happening in China, and they did the sort of typical, like don't worry about it. Then fast forward like another week or two in the studio, and you've got a Boris on the telly saying we're going into full lockdown. Everyone's ringing their nans to check they're still alive and stuff.
Yeah,
it was pretty mental. So that stopped us from doing any Cold Gun shows as soon as I'd finished in the studio. But when I came to the end of recording that the second Hold an Absence album, I realized that I wasn't as into that music as I was maybe hoping I was going to be. I think I remember like the final day in the studio, we were listening back to all the songs, and everyone was like way more excited about it than I was. I was kind of like, oh yeah, this is all right. But I don't know what I was hoping. I was hoping for this sort of like, there's a sort of like unexplainable feeling when you're just really into something. Sometimes it's hard to explain why sometimes you can feel a certain way about a bit of music. But I remember being a bit gutted that I wasn't feeling as stoked on it as the rest of the guys in the band were. So anyway, I had like a year indoors with no activity from either band. And we continued, me and James Bass continued messing around in the garage and stuff. And it became sort of more and more evident that like Cold Gun was like what I always sort of wanted to do musically, but maybe never had the guts to do beforehand. So with COVID kind of stopping the Hold an Absence in its tracks and stuff, for a long time, I wasn't going to leave that band because I wanted the security of being in a band that was sort of like doing well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But as soon as COVID kind of came and no band was doing well in that year, I decided, you know what, I'm going to take a bit of a gamble here and try and do Cold Gun as my main thing, just because I get that like feeling from the music that I've always kind of been chasing. So yeah, that's like me trying to condense like a 2-year sort of story.
Well, I mean, not just you, the pandemic, I think put a lot of people stepped back. They had the time to kind of evaluate their life and what their kind of passions and priorities were. And I guess along with what you said, in the studio where you weren't quite as pumped with the music as maybe the other guys were, and maybe you felt kind of a little bit guilty about that. I guess you kind of also had that time to think, well, I'm getting more of a buzz from the Cold Gun stuff. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you just kind of went down that path then, I guess. Yeah,
there was definitely some periods where I sort of, I remember it felt like quite an easy decision at first because COVID, nothing was happening. So I didn't feel the effect of the decision straight away, but I do remember when live music first came back, Hold an Absence got to do that download pilot thing.
Oh yeah.
And it was like a handful of bands. It was kind of a small scale download festival. They got to be one of the first bands to like kick off live music again. And I remember being like, oh shit, have I made have I made the wrong decision? And I still had to wait a few months until normal shows could resume. And then I played the first Cold Gun show, and then I realized, that this decision does make sense for me. I'm doing something that I'd always dreamt of doing, like fronting a band, playing guitar, singing was something that there was like a pipe dream for me. Like I kind of, and this isn't a diss to bassists out there, but I chose bass originally so I could kind of sit back and kind of just, I was the shy, quiet person. I definitely wasn't a frontman when I was starting in bands.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Like for people listening, like they might not realize a lot of people do kind of take those roles like bassist or the drums or whatever because they're not in the spotlight. Like there's,
Sure.
When you're first performing in bands and to large groups of people, of course you're going to be like apprehensive and have the stage fright and stuff like that. But I guess in a way, when you're playing bass on stage to these bigger and bigger crowds, when you're in Hold an Absence, I guess that kind of gave you more confidence to kind of take that next step forward, and therefore gave you the push to do Cold Gun in a way.
That's exactly it, and that's something I'll always be grateful for. Like anyone who was ever supportive of the of that band when I was in it, like that they made me who I am today. So still pretty nervous, but I managed to sort of hide it behind the shades.
Well, I think I read somewhere as well that even before Cold Gun, I think you and James were in was it like a hardcore project? Is that right?
Nice. Yeah, it was rubbish, but yeah, we don't talk about that much. We did a little vegan hardcore band together for a little while, but there was some questionable people in that band, so we just
we don't talk about that. No.
the proper wrong ones. We basically, I started the band as a solo project. It was going to be because I couldn't find anyone. Basically, it was going to be a vegan straight edge hardcore band, and I couldn't find anyone in the local area who was vegan or straight edge. So I settled on having these other guys in it, and those guys just ended up being some of the worst people ever.
Oh God!
So yeah, good riddance.
Well, you're on to bigger and better things now, so there you go. Am I right in thinking the name of the band, James and the Cold Gun, comes from the Kate Bush song of the same name?
Yes, you got it. So when we started taking this from just a few jams in the garage to like a proper band, there was going to be a third James involved, who was also in the band before, the hardcore band that we did. So we thought it'd be funny to, at that point, 3 Jameses is pretty unusual. So we thought it'd be funny to have like a James and the name. That James ended up, he's really into mountain biking and stuff, and he's just gone like, he's probably in some other country riding a bike now. So just down to 2 Jameses, but again, that's still a lot of Jameses. So we went with a James and the name. We had loads of terrible ones, and then one day I was watching a Kate Bush documentary, and the song James and the Cold Gun played, and I was like, oh, that's sick. Like, 1, I love Kate Bush, and 2, it sounds like a rock band to me. Like, it's just one of those names where it kind of, I was after a name for a while that sort of gave a little hint to what the band sounds like, even if you haven't heard the band. And I think we hit the nail on the head with that one. Yeah,
it just helps that there's 2 Jameses in the band. That just goes with it.
Yeah, it's funny and it's great. Apart from like during sound checks, it's an absolute nightmare. It's like, James, can you turn your guitar up? And both of us are like, yep.
Which one?
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, you mentioned there like the band kind of started gaining traction and legs just as the pandemic started kind of coming in. Was it kind of then difficult to gather the rest of the band as well to kind of solidify the band as it is today?
Yes and no. Like when we started the band, we decided to sort of, I guess I've always used the term like on paper, but basically it's myself and James B who write the songs and do the kind of majority of the back, behind the scenes stuff. So we decided what would be kind of cool is if we had like a bit of a revolving door of members. I guess there's loads of bands that do it, but a band that came to mind was like Eagles of Death Metal. They have loads of different people making up the band. Even Queens of the Stone Age over the years have just had loads of different people come and go. And we quite liked the idea of that because we didn't know anyone who wanted to go for it as much as we did. We knew loads of, we have loads of friends who would happily play a couple of shows, but they wouldn't want to go on like a month-long tour, or they wouldn't want to, have to quit a job for the band at any point. So we've been really lucky. We've had everybody who's played with us has been amazing. We've had loads of cool people from the scene, from different bands play for us. Like we had Ash from Hold an Absence for a couple of shows. We had Georgia, who used to play in Bleak Soul, play for a couple of shows with us. We've had a guy called Mark who used to be in Brutality Will Prevail. We've had so many like wicked people, but more recently we've kind of settled on like a fairly solid lineup. Like after a handful of tours, we ended up sort of having the same people who are willing to come back with us. So we're trying to sort of be a bit more of a solid band now, just because we like the idea that we're used to playing with each other and we can have like full band photos and all of that kind of stuff.
It just proves you don't have to be named James to be in the band.
No, not anymore.
And the band's only been going for like 3-4 years, and already you've accomplished so much. I mean, like last year you played with Pearl Jam in Hyde Park, and then a year later, just a few weeks ago, Hyde Park again, Guns N' Roses.
It's a bit mad, isn't it? Yeah, I could get used to that.
It's just a real experience, like two of the biggest rock bands of all time, and you got to share a stage with them. Like, you can't even put that into words, can you?
I quite, yeah. No. You say it. It is a bit mad, isn't it? We, to be honest, I'm just really cheeky. I just like try my luck sometimes. I'm a bit of a punisher on emails. Just like this Guns N' Roses one, I really wasn't expecting to get. Like the Pearl Jam thing was a bit easier because we signed to the label of Stone, who's the guitarist of Pearl Jam. So that one was a little bit more obvious. But then Guns N' Roses, I did such an amateur thing. I saw it get announced and I screenshotted it on my phone and just sent it to like our agent and a few other people being like, oh, this would be a good one for us. But like, obviously it's the fact that I like said, oh, this one would be good. It's like, no shit. Like, of course. But it actually worked. Like a couple of weeks later, our agent came back and was like, yeah, do you want to do it then? And I was like, wait, what? Like, what do you mean? Of course. Like, I didn't think asking would actually work.
Well, it's just evidence of that old saying, don't ask, don't get.
Exactly. Anyone listening right now, go and ask. I don't know. Go and take a chance on something.
Yeah, just ask to support Guns N' Roses. It might happen. It happened for you guys. So, and yeah, you mentioned there like you're signed to Stone from Pearl Jam's label, Loose Groove Records. How did that kind of come about? And what's it been like working with them? Was that another case of you sending a cheeky email?
A little bit, but it's also a bit of a miracle. I'll try and condense this story too because it's a bit long. But so during 2020, 2021, that the year where no music was happening, no live music was happening, and I was kind of in between bands because I'd left. I decided to leave Hold in Absence, but I hadn't fully started with this band. I got really into running. I think it was just one of those. I think a lot of people got into sports and stuff in lockdown. It was like some sort of weird, because I've always, until now, I used to hate running. I used to think it was stupid, but I got into running in lockdown, and while I was doing the runs, there was this thing in Cardiff started called Running Punks. And it's like it started out as like a running club for people in the bands and kind of people adjacent to like, the kind of Cardiff music scene.
Right. So
I put on these runs with all these awesome people. And I met a guy called Steve Wrongpop, his name is, and he works for a homelessness charity. And he asked me if I could like give him a song for this compilation he was doing for the charity that he works for to raise some money. And he'd already got some wicked bands. Like he had a song from Idols and he had a song from Dream Nails and a few other cool bands. And I was like, oh yeah, of course. Didn't really think much of it. You just send him the file and they pop it up on Bandcamp and all of that. Then fast forward a few weeks and the compilation album got picked up by KEXP in Seattle by a DJ called Kevin Cole. And weirdly, out of all the songs on it, he decided to keep spinning our song Long Way Home on the air as a bit of a way to support the charity compilation, but also just because he liked the song. This is where it gets mad. It probably only got played 3 or 4 times. And on one of those 4 times, Stone from Pearl Jam was driving his car and he heard the song and decided to get in touch with us on Instagram after hearing the song. Now, in these 2 weeks of all this happening, I actually broke my leg really badly by falling down the stairs in my flat. I was carrying a guitar from upstairs downstairs, and I was like tinkling on it as you do. Tinkling, is that? Yeah. I was having a little go on it, walking down the stairs, and I slipped, and I went like down 10 stairs onto my one leg, snapped in a bunch of places. My feet were all it was pointing the wrong way and all that. So I broke my ankle really badly, had to go to hospital, have a surgery. I had to move back in with my parents, and I love them, but it's not what you want to be doing at our age. I moved back in with my parents, and I couldn't really do much. So I was in bed, a bit gutted as well. My mental health took a dip because, again, no bands, and I'd gotten into running as like the one thing that kind of put me in a good mood in lockdown. And then I couldn't do that either. So I'm in bed kind of just feeling sorry for myself. Then I get this message on Instagram from Stone from Pearl Jam. But the funny thing was he doesn't have like a legit blue tick, Stone Gossard account. It's just SG12956, you know.
So it looks like a random user that's just kind of...
Oh God, it's like the most random user, yeah. And it came up in our requests, and it was like, "Hey guys, Stone from Pearl Jam here. Just heard you on the radio in Seattle. I want to sign you guys." And I was like, "Oh yeah, of course it is." Like, so I didn't reply for a day or two, but then I think one night I was bored, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, okay." Like here's my email. 5 minutes later, I get a proper email from a more legit looking email address.
Yeah.
And CC'd in the email is like all these people from the company that owns the label is called The Orchard and is part of Sony. So get this massive email with like people from Sony and The Orchard and everything CC'd. And I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe this is real. Maybe SG159 is actually Stone from Pearl Jam. So I rang James B and I was like, holy shit, like, I think that weird message is actually Stone from Pearl Jam. He's actually heard our song whilst driving and he wants to sign us. So a couple of weeks pass and we get on a Zoom call with him, and he's an absolute legend. Like, we were pretty nervous, excited, you know, all the emotions. And he's just like a massive fan of the band. Like, he was saying, you know when like someone's a real fan, and whether it's music or like TV or whatever, or a film, and they can make actual full-on points about the music, which almost is like proof that they've actually listened to it.
Yeah.
Rather, you know, I've so many industry people over the years where I've got a load to hold an absence where you get these fucking wankers, and they'd be like, "Oh, I really like your band," and you're like, "Okay, like, what do you want?" sort of thing. Yeah. Whereas he was like, "Oh, I really like this song, the bit at 27 seconds where the guitar goes like," and I was like, "Whoa, what the?"
That was very specific then.
This like rock legend is taking the time to listen to my shitty recordings, and he's telling me like what he likes about them. But yeah, it's, we pretty much on the spot signed to him for 3 albums, which was pretty mental, and it honestly feels a bit like a miracle, especially like me being you know, in bed with a broken leg, feeling sorry for myself and all that. Yeah, so thanks, Stone.
Yeah, well, you know, that kind of cheered you up from trying to do rock and roll on the stairs. Pro tip: don't do that again.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned the running there. Like, I was kind of like you. Like, before the lockdowns, like, I was like, I knew I definitely needed to be more active and stuff, but I didn't really take up running until the lockdowns. I did like couch to 5K. I don't know if that's how you kind of started.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
When is that kind of like, is it just because of the pandemic you started running? Because I've seen on your Instagram you do quite long distances. Didn't you do like, was it 30 miles or something?
Oh yeah, I went, I've got quite an addictive personality, so like the people who know me well, like I don't drink or anything anymore, and it's because I have a really addictive personality. Like so when I found running as the thing that sort of made me feel good, I went for it big time. So I think within like a month or two of running, I did a half marathon.
Oh wow!
Like a week or two later, I did a full marathon, and then, you know, the next thing, I'd be ringing my girlfriend would wake up a little bit later than me, you know, so I'd be out a few hours before her, and she'd ring me and she'd be like, "Where are you? Like, where's my coffee? Where are you?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm in Bristol from," you know, and she's like, "What do you mean how have you got to Bristol?" I'm like, "I've run there. I'll be back in 3 hours." And she's like, "What's wrong with you?" But definitely just addictive personality, and it really made me feel good in a time where it was kind of hard to feel that good. I still love it now. I do it. I'm a bit more in moderation at the moment. Just right. I think I took it to that extreme, and now I can chill a bit and just do as and when.
That Bristol story. Do you watch, or have you watched Peep Show?
It's exactly exactly. Yeah, it's exactly like that.
Yeah. So what do you kind of listen to when you are running? What kind of like pumps you up and gets you in the zone?
I'm not that fast at running. I mean, probably I could do it, but I don't really. I'm not really into fast running. I like a slow kind of.
You're more like a long distance than a sprinter.
Like a long distance, yeah. And like I'm really into just the getting the headspace and stuff, and just the fresh air. And I quite like running long distances and like surprising yourself. Like there's like a 5-mile route from my flat, which can take me all the way to like Cardiff Castle, which is on the other side of Cardiff. And I always get there and I think, whoa, like this would have taken a while in a car, let alone on foot. Generally, I love podcasts. I absolutely love podcasts. So I'm gonna have to go back and listen to some of your episodes, because there's some people that I really like that you've had on here. But I listen to like there's the podcast called the Rich Roll podcast. He's like a big ultra runner, new wavy kind of like health guy. He's really interested and he gets good guests. I've been loving the Justin Hawkins Rides Again podcast, Justin from the Darkness. That's really great because he talks about loads of interesting elements of the music business that are quite relatable. Like it's really enjoyable. I don't know, I find it really enjoyable to listen to someone who's gone through similar things, but at slightly higher level. I also I've recently, with my girlfriend on drives, started listening to the Red Handed podcast, the true crime podcast. That's really cool. It's a bit brutal, but it's good. It's good when you're struggling on a long run or like a late night drive.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've not really tried listening to podcasts on a run, but I'll give it a go and see.
You might end up like surprising yourself how far. If you can find a podcast that you're proper into, like one where you don't want to stop listening, you might find you can run sort of further than ever before.
Yeah.
I need to do the opposite though. I need to try and do some short, fast runs. I'm maybe making playlists of like songs I like and shorter ones.
Or like Spotify has like those different ones where it's like I think they say it's like different BPMs, depending on like obviously like the pace that you run and stuff like that. So maybe you find something there.
Yeah, straight up, definitely.
I mean, returning to the debut album, what was it like writing and recording that? Because you said it earlier that it kind of finished up about a year ago. So was it kind of like doing it in bits and drabs, and then you kind of was it like an intent to make an album, or just kind of accidentally become an album?
It was always we definitely, as soon as Stone got involved, I think had Stone not have got involved, we would have probably done some more singles. Partly because we probably wouldn't have been able to afford to do that many songs. We were kind of working with a friend of ours, and we were sort of paying him just like dribs and drabs, like kind of like whenever we could afford to do a little bit here and there. And he really helped us kind of start off recording bits and bobs. But as soon as Stone got involved and said that he wanted us to do an album, we were all for it. I think for me, an album was a bit of a, what's the best way to say it? It was like something I really wanted to do, like, but also something I was a bit nervous, apprehensive of. Like I'd done 2 before with the old band, and I knew how much work went into them. And I think like it's like one of the best things you can do, but one of the hardest things you can do, because it makes you like question everything, and it's quite time consuming, and like you have days where you hate it and days where you love it. Whereas for me, like the live playing live and touring, I've always loved. Like even on the bad days, I love it. But sometimes writing and recording, it definitely has ups and downs. So I was really apprehensive, but we just went for it. We just locked ourselves away and just smashed it out. I think the hardest thing was for us was figuring out how to make it, because originally we worked with a couple of different producers,
right? And
then we had this situation where we had a bunch of recordings in like a SoundCloud for Stone and the team to listen to, and there was all sorts. There was a couple of songs that were done by like a big producer. There was a song that was done by a local guy. There was a couple of bedroom demos. There was a couple of phone recordings of things. So we sent them all to Stone, assuming that he was going to go, oh yeah, the big producer, that's the one. Let's get them all to sound like that. Turns out he kind of threw us a curveball when he listened to SoundCloud, and he was like, oh wow, who did track 4? We were like, track 4 is a bedroom demo. Well, a demo we've done in a garage, about half an hour of mucking around.
Yeah.
He was like, that's the one. And we were like, oh, what do you mean that's the one? We just spent $1,000 of our own money like on a really good producer on like track 1. Yeah. And he's saying track 4 is like we finally found the sound. And I was like, so he challenged us to try and do the album ourselves, which at first we were kind of like, we I don't know how we felt about it at first, because we were kind of like, oh, we finally signed to this label owned by a guy who potentially has the money to let us go to some sort of big time producer. Yeah. And here he is asking us to do it in the garage ourselves. Yeah. So we were a bit like, oh, what the hell? Like, I don't know how we feel about this, but we're so glad he made us do it, because it's actually like, it's taught us so much more about like writing, and it's made us more confident as people writing music and like recording it ourselves. And actually, yeah, now in hindsight, it sounds way better than anything that we basically saved ourselves like 20 grand probably doing it.
Well, there you go.
Exactly. And I think the best thing now, we're looking at new stuff right now. And the sixth thing is we can get it to like a finished standard ourselves and then look for who could maybe elevate it that little bit more rather than just being totally clueless and kind of just having to pay $1,000 every time to try somebody out.
Definitely helps, doesn't it? Like, you said there, like saved, several grand's worth of money. And in that, you've also learned how to do things yourself. You've become, as you say, better songwriters yourself. So not only have you saved money, you've earned things from it as well.
Totally. I think a lot of the time with, and don't get me wrong, there are some amazing producers out there, like myself, especially. Like I've worked with a bunch of really great people over the years. But one of the hardest things really is I was always looking for someone. I guess I was always in the back of my mind. I was always looking for someone to like help me get to like a finished point with a piece of work. Whereas Stone came in and he was like, "It's already there, man. You got to like, why are you constantly trying to seek this like external validation?" He was kind of like, "You've got it. Like you just it's good enough as it is." But I think we're all kind of just assume that there's someone out there who could just help us that bit more, but maybe it's not always necessary.
Yeah, I think some bands as well, like they'll go to a certain big producer, and of course, like they're good, but sometimes they go for it not because they've got the right sound that they can kind of put their fingerprints on, but for the clout, I guess, to have a name on their album to kind of like push it a bit further.
Yeah, that's always a funny one. I think I hear about bands doing that all the time, and I think honestly, nobody really cares unless you get like Rick Rubin or like one of those like household names. No, I've never really, again, unless it's someone really weird doing a really big band's album and it's like a curveball one. I've never listened to a band because of who produced it.
Yeah.
Like, so I think bands often waste their money if like doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that I learned, and maybe this would be helpful for anyone in a band to realize, I always thought that there was some sort of secret, amazing thing that someone could press to make my shit song good. As soon as there's been a couple of times where I've taken a bad song or like an unfinished song to like a really good producer, and all they've done is they've recorded it better, and then I've got a better sounding bad song. The bitter pill to swallow is that it's always going to sound, you need to get it sounding good in its like most simple kind of like reduced kind of version before bothering to spend any money.
Yeah.
It's a hard one because everyone would rather just spend money and just get an easy fix, but it's not how it works.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned kind of like curveball producers there. I mean, I was going to listen to the album anyway, but I can't remember which one it is, but I think Diplo produced a Rollo Tomasi album, which I thought was a bit like strange. Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's cool. The one that came to mind for me was Queens of the Stone Age went with Mark Ronson for a record.
That's
before. And that was the sort of one where I thought, oh, that is cool because that's going to split people. That's the guy who's done Happy with Pharrell and like loads of Bruno Mars and shit. Like, it was a divisive kind of thing to choose to do.
Yeah. So did you self-record and self-produce the whole album, or was it just a few songs?
So we did the whole album, but there are two people that we have to sort of mention here. Our drummer Jack, he does this thing called the session drums, where his job outside of playing in loads of bands is recording drums for other people's records, and he works with a producer called Chris Coulter, who's done like a bunch of cool bands over the years. I think he's done some stuff. I think he's done stuff like Black Peaks, and I think he did some stuff for Idols way back when and stuff. So he helped record the drums. So we already had good sounding drums, which was good because we would have never have been able to do that ourselves in the garage. So and then we had an amazing guy called Ben Moore mix it. Once we'd got it to a point where everything sounded bad to us, kind of just handed it off to him, and he was absolutely class. Like we tried a few people mixing it, and nobody was getting it quite right. A lot of people were making it sound too big and too like, we wanted it to sound like a band, and they were making it sound like really, really polished, like kind of super modern, almost like how metalcore kind of sounds. Like, and I love like loads of metalcore, but we're like a rock band and we wanted it to feel a bit like more loose and like a bit rougher. Whereas, metalcore is all about like precision, kind of like everything's like perfect. So we ended up, I don't know why we didn't think of this. We went through probably about 5 people mixing it, doing tests for us. And then we were banging our heads against the wall a bit because we just weren't happy with any of them. And we were already way too far in the process to, we had to figure out something because we'd spent all this time recording it ourselves. Then one day I was listening to one of our favorite records by a band called Rocket from the Crypt. And I was like, oh, this sounds kind of exactly how we'd like to sound. Who did this? And I found the guy, Ben Moore, on the back. And so I sent him a message. In my mind, I assumed he would just be, I don't know, either not interested or way out of our price bracket. He came back within like an hour being like, I love what you guys are doing. Yeah, I'll do it for like cheap as chips, to be honest, like for someone of his level. A week passes, he sends us all the songs back. They sound exactly like how we wanted. It was like a dream come true to find him. And I can't believe we went through months and months of trying all these people and we didn't think to just hit up the guy who made one of our favorite records.
Well, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's good the way you've kind of did most of it yourselves before sending it off, because to me when I've listened to the album, it's like kind of a no frills rock and roll album. It's not lifeless and overproduced like you kind of mentioned there, and it's kind of like more organic and human sounding. Like I say, it's not perfect. There's little blemishes and stuff like that, which is I've only caught you guys live once at Lenmania. But that's kind of like how you guys sound live as well. Like, it's rough around the edges. And I guess obviously, like you've just mentioned there, that's literally what you were going for. You wanted to sound real, like a band, like not a computer.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we recorded as much of it as possible, like as if it was live. Like, I think the only thing we'd do differently is if we had the budget would have been to actually play the songs together and just record that. We love the idea as well of like, leaving somewhere to go for like future records. I think if we'd have gone like super arena rock production and with like a 5-piece choir and strings and all of that stuff, we'd have nowhere to go. Whereas I think like the fact it's a bit stripped back and kind of I guess raw is exactly what we want. And I think we're already like gonna add production and stuff on future things, and now it's like it's quite exciting to I think we're going to be able to follow up really quickly, because the obvious thing to just make it, I guess, a step, take what we've done so far and elevate it. It's just going to be adding all those kind of production things. Yeah,
and you kind of laid a foundation there with the record, and kind of talking about expanding and stuff. Where would you say, for people that listen to this podcast before the album comes out, where would you say it kind of picks up and builds up from the False Start EP?
I definitely think I've gotten a little bit more confident with vocals since doing that EP. So I definitely think the vocals are improved, and I think I love the drums on it. I think Jack, our drummer, has done an amazing job of all the drums. I think if you're a drummer, you'll really enjoy all the playing on it. And then I think really it's just like a bit of a natural progression. I think if you enjoyed the EP, you'll definitely enjoy the album. I think they're pretty close together. They were recorded. They were probably only recorded about 6, maybe 8 months apart. So really, really, it's very, very similar, but just a little bit better. Just a smidge better.
And longer, obviously.
Better and longer. There we go. James the Cold Gun debut album, better and longer.
Well, you've also got these 2 album launch shows, haven't you? You've got the Cardiff show on the actual day of release, and then I think London, is it the next week?
Yeah, it's the 25th. So it's like I think it's like the Tuesday after.
How do you feel about them, like celebrating the release of the album in that way?
I'm buzzing for them, to be honest. Yeah, headline shows are a funny one because we haven't done that many of them, and it always blows my mind to do a headliner and know that there are people who actually want to just come for your band. It's like a really cool feeling. I'm just hoping that people get stuck in. I really want some chaotic, like I just want a good time. I want to smash it up a little bit. We've done a bunch of like bigger supports where we're considerably far away from the audience, and like it's a totally different beast to a small sweaty kind of club show. I'm just hoping like everybody comes down and gets stuck in the air. That's all I can hope for. And I'll just be there with a smile on my face, kind of orchestrating the chaos.
Yeah, you're the conductor. That's what you are.
Yeah, exactly. I can barely play guitar, so I'm just going to stand there and wave my arms about.
As long as there's no stairs, you'll be all right, won't you?
Yeah, so. yeah, no stairs.
And then you've also got in October a few days with Tiger Cub as well, which that'll be cool.
Yeah, I'm buzzing for that. I can't wait. We've been fans of Tiger Cub for years, especially James B. He recalls seeing them supporting like Royal Blood in like 100-cap venue in Cardiff. Honestly, probably like close to 10 years ago.
Oh wow!
It's amazing that it feels like Tiger Cub are finally having like a well-deserved moment, as in like they finally got to that like sort of level where they're really giving it a good go, because they've been like an underrated band for like the best part of 10 years now. They're also label mates, so Stone also signed them, and that was kind of cool because we felt pretty like honored that he loved them, and if he'd signed a load of shit bands, then we'd be on the fence about whether it was a good thing or not. But the fact that he was into, I think I don't think he'll mind me saying this, but he signed Tiger Cub. He was trying to sign Bad Nerves for a while, who are another band I love, and then he signed us. So like we knew he had like a good taste in like rock music. But yeah, it's going to be wicked. We're buzzing for those shows. I think it's going to be our first tour one of our first tours where like the audience is really like spot on for kind of what we're going for. Like we've done some cool tours in the past, like we toured with Creeper and we've toured with the Wild Hearts and Therapy, but every tour we've done prior to this feels like not exactly what we're going for in terms of whereas something like Tiger Cub or I guess Len Mania, that was only a one-off, but that felt like the perfect kind of audience to play to for what we're doing.
Yeah, definitely. Like you just said there, like you and Tiger Cub not only being like label mates, but a similar kind of demographic, I guess, of fans as well that will definitely make those shows pop.
100%. Yeah, I'm buzzing for it. I think feels like the hardest thing about doing this band compared to like other bands I've done in the past is there doesn't seem like such a tightly knit like rock scene. There are a lot of cool rock bands, but they're all doing their own things. Whereas I felt like when I was doing, the post-hardcore thing or the hardcore thing or whatever, I felt like there was really obvious scenes to exist in. And like there was already like, you could do like one support tour and you're in that world. Whereas with rock, I think you have to work a bit harder to like find the people.
Yeah, definitely. Like you look like a band like the Excerpts, for example, like they've had to work so hard for so many years, and
for sure,
it seems like they're finally getting their flowers as well.
Yeah, totally. That's another great band for sure.
Well, new album coming out, you got all these tours and the album release shows and stuff. What else is planned for James and the Cold Gun so far for 2023 that you can talk about?
There's not a lot at the moment, so I might have to send some more cheeky emails out. If you see any tours that might be suitable for us. Actually, well, there's 2 tours that I'm gunning for, and so I've sent some cheeky emails already, actually. But yeah, we don't have a ton on, but partly because the Tiger Cub tour is actually quite long. I think it's about 20 days or in total.
Okay, quite a long one.
Yeah, it's pretty long. So as far as the UK goes, I think we're restricted in what we can do because there's that whole thing where you're not able to overplay an area if you've got a tour on. We'd love to get out to Europe, so we're really hoping someone could take us out to Europe. I think if it was like pre-Brexit days, we'd just get in my van and go now. But it's a little bit more expensive and it's a bit of a faff to go to Europe now. So I think we need to wait until someone with an audience there already could take us out. The other thing, we're desperate to go over to America properly. We did South by Southwest and we got a proper taste for America, and like it's nuts how big rock is out there. Like I know it sounds silly, but like you go into like restaurants and stuff in America and you'll just hear like Queens of the Stone Age or Foo Fighters blaring. And it made me think when you're in the UK and you do that, you just hear kind of top 40 stuff. You hear the latest Ed Sheeran song or whatever. But they actually still play rock like everywhere. It's a bit of it's a bit weird. Like
you'd have to go to like a specific rock club, don't you?
Exactly.
Like over there, you've got it like Octane and Sirius FM and stuff.
Yeah, and they're like
big stations.
Yeah, exactly. So I think as much as I'm like, I love being from the UK and I love Wales and stuff, I really think that America is going to be the one for us to really try and crack if we want to make this band like a career band. And so we're waiting for the call really to try and get over there.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed you send that right cheeky email and you get some more US dates locked in.
Yeah. Cheers, mate.
Well, thanks so much for your time, James. I really do appreciate you speaking with me today. Best of luck with the album launch, and I'm sure it's going to go well. And obviously the dates that are coming up at the launch and with Tiger Club and what else comes after that. Before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your day, what are your final words? Anything you want to say? Anything you want to plug? Anything we've missed?
Oh, you know what? One thing that I've been big on at the moment. It's a bit cheesy, but I might as well. If we're going to go down the wisdom route, I would say to anyone listening, whatever you're doing right now, try and enjoy the journey rather than the end result. That's like, it's been so important for me to try and do that recently, because I find I'm such a mopey cunt most of the time. So yeah, anyone listening right now, whatever you're doing, whether you're out on a run or whether you're doing your own business or whatever, or a band, try and enjoy the process. Don't get too caught up on the end result and you'll be fine. There you go.
Wise words to end on there, James. Thanks very much.
Nice one, mate. Take care, Zach.
See you later. And that is it. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you enjoyed this or any other episode of the podcast, then please leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. If you want to support the podcast further, you can go and give it a follow on social media, pick up something from the merch store, or subscribe to the Patreon to get early access to episodes. All of the links can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. Thanks again. Hopefully catch you on the next one. And remember, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle.